Good evening. Tonight we're talking about Equestria, a land of vibrant colour, talking ponies, and a level of friendship so powerful it can be weaponized into a rainbow laser beam. Look at it. It seems peaceful. It seems harmonious. You'd think a place like this runs on hugs and cupcake-based economics. But beneath that sparkly, candy-coated exterior lies a history so chaotic, so magically disastrous, that it would make a dragon lawyer sweat. And trust me, dragons are not known for their perspiration. For centuries, Equestria wasn't so much a kingdom as it was a series of escalating magical accidents, only occasionally interrupted by a group hug. It was a beautiful, terrifying mess. How did they get from that free-for-all to a functioning society? The answer, as it so often is paperwork. Mountains of it. Specifically, they created the Royal Equestrian Codex of Law, a document as thick as a history book and probably twice as confusing. This wasn't a proactive measure. No, this codex was written in the smouldering ashes of near apocalypses. Every single rule, every subsection, every single tedious legal clause is a direct response to some pony or some chaos god or some power-mad centaur nearly breaking reality. It's less a legal framework and more a collection of "please don't do this again" post-it notes, bound in leather and sealed with a royal crest. So tonight, we're going to take a journey. Not through the sunny fields of Ponyville, but through the dark and frankly hilarious history that made this rulebook necessary. We will explore the mind control pop bands, the time-travelling shenanigans, and the ancient pony arguments that nearly ended the world. We'll see how each catastrophe led directly to a new line in the law books. This is the story of how a kingdom built on friendship had to invent rules to stop its citizens from, among other things, accidentally erasing their friends from existence. It's a legal epic, sponsored by chaos and written by very, very tired scribes. And it all starts with a simple question. What happens when your neighbour can literally control your mind with a catchy song? The answer, as Equestria discovered, is that you need a legal department, and you need one fast. You need rules. You need regulations. You need a very clear and legally binding document that states, for the record, that hypnotizing the entire town to steal their pies is, in fact, frowned upon. This is the story of the Royal Codex, a necessary evil born from pure, unadulterated magical mayhem. So, buckle up, because things are about to get legally complicated and absurdly equine. Let's begin with a foundational problem in any magical society: mind control. In most places, this is a theoretical evil. In Equestria, it was practically a recurring Tuesday. It seemed like every other villain who rolled into town had some new exciting way to turn ponies into their personal puppets. You had the Sirens, a trio of malevolent singers whose tunes could whip an entire population into a frenzy of negative energy. They were basically a magical boy band from hell, feeding on conflict they created. It was less a battle of the bands and more a hostile takeover with a surprisingly catchy soundtrack. This wasn't a one-time thing either. Oh no. You also had King Sombra, a shadowy unicorn tyrant who could enslave an entire empire with his dark magic, turning happy-go-lucky crystal ponies into glassy-eyed soldiers. His whole aesthetic was evil smoke monster who hates freedom, and his primary tool was mind control. Think about that. 1 minute, you're enjoying a crystalberry scone. The next, you're marching in lockstep for a king made of nightmares. It's an inconvenient and frankly terrifying way to spend an afternoon, and it happened more than once. This constant threat of mental hijacking made trusting your neighbour a very risky proposition. We spoke with one of the rulers who had to deal with this mess. Princess Celestia, how did you handle this constant threat? She told us, well, for centuries, our official policy was to find 6 ponies with magical necklaces and hope for the best. It was surprisingly effective, but not exactly a sustainable long-term governance strategy. After the 3rd or 4th mind control-induced flash mob, we realized we needed something written down. Something that officially stated, your thoughts are your own property. It seems obvious, but when villains keep trying to repossess them, you need it in writing. And so, the very first section of the Royal Codex was born. The Magical Ethics Charter, specifically Clause 1.1, the prohibition of mind control. It's a dense, wordy document, but it boils down to this. You cannot enchant, hypnotize, or otherwise magically compel another sentient being to do your bidding. This applies whether you are trying to conquer the kingdom or just trying to cut the line at the Hayburger stand. The law was a direct, almost point-by-point response to the Sirens and Sombra, making it illegal to use your voice, your stare, or your evil crystal powers to turn your friends into mindless drones. It was Equestria's first and most important legal boundary. Mind control is one thing, but what about time itself? Surely no one would be foolish enough to mess with the fabric of reality. Wrong. So wrong. Meet Starlight Glimmer, a powerful but misguided unicorn who, in a fit of magical pique, decided to go back in time to prevent a single event. The first sonic rainboom. She thought she was correcting a personal injustice. What she actually did was create a series of horrifying, war-torn, alternate timelines. In one, Equestria was at war with King Sombra. In another, it was a desolate wasteland, ruled by parasitic changelings. It was a masterclass in how to make things infinitely worse. Each time she went back, she'd change one tiny thing, and the future would shatter into a new dystopian nightmare. Princess Twilight Sparkle had to follow her through the time stream, witnessing one apocalyptic future after another. Imagine having to fix a problem that keeps creating new, even more terrible problems. It's like trying to put out a fire with a bucket full of smaller, angrier fires. Starlight's actions weren't just reckless. They were a temporal catastrophe that threatened to erase Equestria from existence entirely. This single magical temper tantrum nearly broke the entire space-time continuum, which is generally considered a bad thing. We managed to get a rare interview with one of the scribes who had to draft the resulting legislation. He asked to remain anonymous. The Starlight Glimmer incident, we called it the Great Temporal Headache. We had to write laws for paradoxes. Do you know how hard it is to write a law that accounts for its own non-existence if the timeline changes? We needed clauses for alternate selves, causality loops, and grandfather paradoxes. Princess Twilight kept bringing back notes from futures that didn't exist anymore. It was a nightmare. We had to invent a whole new tense just for the occasion, the past conditional future perfect negative. This led directly to Codex Section 1.2, the Temporal Spell Regulation Act. This law is incredibly strict. It essentially says that time travel is forbidden unless you are an alicorn princess cleaning up a mess made by someone else who was breaking this very law. It established a new government body, the Department of Temporal Integrity, which is essentially just Princess Twilight, with a very complicated calendar and a pained expression. The law requires a 17-part form to even propose a temporal spell, and approval requires the unanimous consent of all 4 alicorns, and a signed affidavit from Discord promising not to turn the past into chocolate milk. It was a bureaucratic solution to a magical apocalypse. Now, if messing with minds and time wasn't enough, Equestria also had to deal with a crisis of identity, specifically the theft of cutie marks. For those not in the know, a cutie mark is the little symbol on a pony's flank that represents their special talent and destiny. It's not just a tattoo, it's the core of who they are. So naturally, some pony decided it would be a great idea to magically remove them. That pony was once again Starlight Glimmer. Before her time-travelling phase, she founded a village based on a creepy concept of equality, where every pony had their cutie mark magically removed and replaced with a drab equal sign. She preached a philosophy of sameness, arguing that unique talents lead to conflict and unhappiness. In reality, it just led to a town full of miserable ponies with the same terrible haircut who had forgotten their purpose in life. She even managed to forcibly take the cutie marks of Princess Twilight and her friends, storing their destinies in a glass case in her creepy cult-like headquarters. This event struck at the very heart of what it meant to be a pony. It was an act of profound violation, erasing individuality in the name of a twisted, forced harmony. It was less a utopian society and more a beige-coloured nightmare. We asked the spirit of chaos and harmony himself, Discord, for his take on this. He, of course, had an opinion. Oh, the cutie mark fiasco. Terribly droll. Forcing every pony to be the same? Where's the fun in that? It's so orderly, so predictable. I much prefer my chaos, thank you, but I will say it did prove a point. Taking away what makes some ponies special doesn't create harmony, it creates a very boring party. And I should know, I once turned all the water in Ponyville into cotton candy. Now that was a memorable party. This whole sameness thing, dreadful, simply dreadful. The incident in Starlight's village led to one of the most personal and fundamental laws in the entire Royal Codex Section 1.3, the Cutie Mark Integrity Act. This law codifies that a pony's cutie mark is their inalienable personal property. It cannot be magically removed, altered or suppressed without their explicit notarized consent. The law is incredibly specific, with sub-clauses protecting against cutie mark appropriation and destiny suppression. It established that a pony's identity is not something to be sacrificed for a false sense of peace. It was a legal declaration that in Equestria, your weird, unique talent is not a flaw, it's a right. Long before codices and legal scribes, Equestria's very founding was a response to a legal and social breakdown. The land was not always united. It was once divided between three pony tribes: the earth ponies who grew the food, the Pegasi who controlled the weather, and the unicorns who managed the sun and moon. They had a system, but well, it was fragile. And one day it broke. A bitter argument between the tribe leaders spiraled into hatred and blame. This animosity acted as a beacon, summoning ancient, terrifying spirits called Windigoes, creatures that fed on conflict and froze everything in their path with an eternal winter. The more the ponies fought, the stronger the Windigoes became, and the colder the world grew. The whole land was on the brink of being frozen solid, not by a magical villain, but by a simple, petty argument that got out of hand. It was the ultimate example of how a lack of conflict resolution can have world-ending consequences. The tribes were about to be wiped out by their own inability to get along. It took their deputies, Clover the Clever, Commander Hurricane and Princess Platinum, leaving their bickering leaders behind and discovering the fire of friendship to drive the Windigoes away and unite the land as Equestria. This foundational myth became the bedrock of Equestrian society, but its lesson had to be relearned constantly. Centuries later, figures like Chancellor Naysay, head of the Equestrian Education Association, tried to enforce prejudice against non-pony species, threatening to tear apart the newly formed School of Friendship. This showed that even with the threat of ice monsters in your history books, some ponies still needed a formal reminder to be nice. The spirit of the law wasn't enough. They needed the letter of the law too, to prevent history from repeating itself in a blizzard of bigotry. This led to the creation of the Harmony and Friendship Statutes, a cornerstone of the Codex. Section 2.1, the Respect Mandate, legally prohibits discrimination based on species, tribe, or whether or not you have a horn. But more importantly, Section 2.2 established mandatory conflict resolution protocols. If a dispute between communities reaches a certain level of animosity, the parties are legally required to attend a friendship summit, which is often just a very awkward picnic overseen by Princess Twilight. It's a bureaucratic attempt to recreate the magic that founded the nation, forcing ponies to talk it out before they accidentally summon friendship-eating ice demons again. Section 6. Chapter 5. Relics, Amulets, and the Please Don't Wear Cursed Jewelry Regulation. Equestria, it turns out, is absolutely littered with dangerous magical artifacts. It's kind of like the whole country is an ancient magical attic that no one ever cleaned out. And, well, ponies, being curious creatures, have a terrible habit of picking up anything that glows. This has, unsurprisingly, led to problems. Take the Alicorn Amulet, for example. A piece of jewelry that promises ultimate power, but conveniently leaves out the part where it corrupts you, turns your eyes red, and makes you talk like a B-movie villain. The show pony Trixie Lulamoon wore it and went from a charmingly arrogant stage magician to a tyrannical dictator who actually banished Princess Twilight from town. And that was just one cursed accessory. There was also the Memory Stone, which was used to erase the memories of every pony at a school. Then we have Grogar's Bewitching Bell, an artifact so powerful it was used by a team-up of Equestria's worst villains. A centaur, a changeling queen, and, believe it or not, a tiny Pegasus filly, to drain almost all the magic from the entire kingdom, including Discord's chaos magic. Each of these incidents caused widespread panic and chaos, all because some pony just couldn't resist the allure of a shiny, powerful, and deeply evil object. It became clear that a finders keepers policy for magical relics was, not working. The response was swift and, for once, quite sensible. The Royal Codex was updated with Part 4, the Magical Artifact Security Act. This section is essentially a giant kingdom-wide registration system for dangerous items. Section 4.1, the Relic Registration Mandate, requires any pony who finds an object of significant magical potential to report it to the Ministry of Arcane Security, which is, again, mostly just Twilight Sparkle with a clipboard. The item is then assessed, catalogued, and usually locked away in the Canterlot Vault, a place so secure that even the people who put things in have trouble getting them out. Furthermore, Section 4.2 created a list of outright banned artifacts. The Alicorn Amulet is, unsurprisingly, at the top of that list. Owning it, wearing it, or even Googling how to get Ultimate Power Amulet cheap is now a serious offence. This part of the Codex is a direct admission that some things are just too dangerous to exist outside of a very, very deep hole. It transformed Equestria's approach to its own history from a treasure hunt into a careful, regulated process of magical disarmament. It was a clear message. Some temptations are best left buried, and some jewelry is best left in the box. Section 7, Chapter 6, the Interspecies Accord, or Yaks Smash, Yaks File Form, Y1. For a kingdom founded on friendship, Equestria was, honestly, surprisingly insular for a long time. It was ponies, and, well, more ponies. But the world is full of other creatures. Proud griffins, honor-bound yaks, shape-shifting changelings, and treasure-hoarding dragons. For centuries, relations were frosty at best and openly hostile at worst. The turning point really came with the founding of the School of Friendship, an ambitious project by Twilight Sparkle to teach the principles of harmony to a diverse group of young students from all over the world. This was a radical idea, and many, like Chancellor Naysay, were deeply opposed to it. The success of the Young Six, a griffin, a yak, a dragon, a changeling, a hippogriff, and a pony, proved the skeptics wrong. They learned to bridge their cultural gaps, and in doing so became a powerful force for unity, even saving Equestria from the aforementioned villainous team-up. But this new era of cooperation needed rules. You can't just have a yak from Yakistan show up and start smashing things without some sort of framework. What is the diplomatic protocol when a dragon accidentally sets a diplomat's hat on fire? These were new and pressing legal questions that the old pony-centric laws simply couldn't answer. So came Part 5 of the Codex Interspecies Treaty Law. This was a massive undertaking, creating a whole new branch of equestrian jurisprudence. It established embassies, created trade agreements, and most importantly, set down rules of engagement. For example, the Changeling Identity Clause, Section 5.2, was written with the memory of Queen Chrysalis's invasion of Canterlot in mind. It states that while shape-shifting is a part of changeling biology, impersonating a royal figure for the purpose of overthrowing the government is strictly forbidden. It's a necessary clarification, honestly. And yes, there are even specific regulations for yaks. After several incidents involving property damage during cultural exchanges, the Yak-Equestrian Friendship Treaty now includes a clause where yaks must file a declaration of intentional smashing Form Y1, before engaging in traditional yak celebrations. It sounds a bit ridiculous, but it's a perfect example of how the Codex works. It takes a chaotic, culturally specific behavior and wraps it in just enough bureaucracy to make it manageable. It doesn't stop yaks from smashing. It just ensures the paperwork is filed first. It's diplomacy at its most absurd and, frankly, most effective. Section 8. Chapter 7. The Nightmare Moon Clause and Emergency. My sister turned evil protocols. All the laws we've discussed so far deal with external threats or internal disputes. But what happens when the threat comes from the very top? What happens when one of the godlike rulers of the kingdom itself becomes the villain? This isn't a hypothetical. It's the event that actually kicked off the modern era of Equestria, the return of Nightmare Moon. 1,000 years prior, Princess Luna, co-ruler of the kingdom, became consumed by jealousy that the ponies loved her sister's day more than her night. This bitterness transformed her into the evil Nightmare Moon, who vowed to create an eternal night. Her sister, Princess Celestia, was faced with an impossible choice. She had to use the most powerful magic in the land, the elements of harmony, against her own sister. She defeated Nightmare Moon and banished her to the moon for 1,000 years. This was the ultimate emergency action, a ruler taking unilateral drastic measures to save the kingdom from her own family. When the prophecy of her return came true a millennium later, it was Princess Celestia who guided Twilight Sparkle to rediscover the elements and save the day once more. This established a powerful and honestly dangerous precedent for emergency powers. This catastrophic event had to be addressed in the law. But how do you write a law to govern a god? The result was Part 6 of the Codex, Emergency Powers and Celestial Events, and its most famous provision, the Nightmare Moon Clause, Section 6.1. This clause is unique in that it doesn't really restrict the Alicorn rulers. Instead, it codifies their right to act. It grants the ruling princess or princesses the authority to take any and all necessary measures to counter a celestial or existential threat, including the use of ancient, powerful magic against another sovereign. It's essentially a legal break glass in case of apocalypse button. It's a deeply uncomfortable piece of law. It's an admission that sometimes the system has to be suspended to save itself. The clause is balanced by the Prophecy Protocol, Section 6.2, which dictates how foreknowledge of such events must be handled, vetted, verified, and used to prepare, not to cause panic. This came from Twilight's discovery of the Nightmare Moon prophecy. The entire section is a legal tightrope walk, granting immense power while trying to hedge it with procedure. It's the Codex's way of saying, we hope this never happens again. But if your sister tries to block out the sun, here's the paperwork for banishing her to the moon. Section 9. Conclusion. Does the Codex bring harmony or just more homework? So, after centuries of magical disasters, mind control, time paradoxes and family feuds, Equestria finally has its Royal Codex of law. A sprawling, magnificent and honestly, utterly exhausting document that tries to put guardrails on a world powered by friendship and chaos. It's a testament to the idea that even the most magical societies need rules. From prohibiting mind control to regulating prophetic warnings, the Codex is a direct reflection of Equestria's chaotic history, with every disaster earning its own paragraph, and every villain inadvertently becoming a co-author of the laws designed to stop them. But here's the final crucial question. Does it actually work? Does this mountain of parchment truly keep the peace in Equestria? The answer is, sort of. On one hand, yes. Having formal rules for interspecies relations and artifact handling has undoubtedly prevented countless minor apocalypses. The threat of legal action is now a deterrent, alongside the threat of being blasted by a friendship rainbow. But on the other hand, Equestria is still Equestria. New magical oddities pop up every week. The laws are constantly being tested, bent, and sometimes, well, hilariously broken. The spirit of chaos is not so easily contained by subsections and addendums. Ultimately, the Royal Codex hasn't replaced the core principle of Equestria. It has just given it a formal structure. The real enforcement mechanism isn't a royal guard. It's still Twilight Sparkle and her friends, who now have to deliver a friendship lesson and a legal citation. The Codex hasn't solved all of Equestria's problems. What it has done is give Princess Twilight Sparkle an infinite amount of homework. She is now the de facto head of the magical, legal and temporal departments, spending her nights not just studying friendship, but also drafting new amendments to cover, for example, the legal ramifications of a smoothie that grants temporary super speed. And that, in the end, is the beautiful absurdity of it all. Equestria tried to solve its chaos problem with order, and in doing so created a system where its greatest hero is also its most overworked bureaucrat. The Royal Codex stands as a monument to every mishap and monster, a symbol of progress and a source of endless administrative headaches. It proves that even in a land of magic and friendship, the most powerful force of all might just be paperwork. Good night.